Welcome you all. Today I would like to explain about the amoebic dysentery or amoebiasis. You know, the disease which is caused by the Entamoeba histolytica is called as the amoebic dysentery. In medical term, that one also be called as amoebiasis. The amoebiasis is a disease that is caused by the Entamoeba histolytica. It creates one type of dysentery type of disease. And such type of dysentery which are caused by the Entamoeba histolytica called as amoebic dysentery. Entamoeba is named as the amoeba. Due to remaining inside the enteron, it is called as Entamoeba. Okay? Entamoeba or Entamoeba means it is a one parasite which one generally remains inside the lumen of the large intestine. Generally, that type of parasite degenerate or destroy the tissue mass at the intestinal regions, especially at the large intestine. It is one type of the intestinal parasite. Due to remaining inside the viscera of the human being, it is also be called as endoparasite, which one causes this disease, which one is called as amoebic dysentery, or also be called as amoebiasis. Students, the parasite all the times prefer the host to complete its life cycle. But this parasite, it is a monogenetic parasite. It depends upon only one host to complete its life cycle. Human being's body is the best host for it. It completes its life cycle on the human's body. Generally, it infects to the tissues and cells. If the tissue are degenerated or destroyed or decomposed, you can say to it is called as histolysis. And if the tissue degenerates in there, that means cell also will degenerate in that place. That is also be called as the lysis. The histolysis and cytolysis that generally caused by this particular agent which causes the disease in there, that is also called as the pathogenic agent named as the Entamoeba histolytica, and that type of disease would be called as amoebic dysentery or also be called as amoebiasis. You see, as already noted, the Entamoeba histolytica lives in the where? In the lumen of the large intestine of man as harmless, minute forms. In that stage, you must find the cyst must be enclosed with it. It will not be affected to the tissues in that time. It will only remain inside the large intestine. And this one comes after the trophozoite stage, and that is called as the cyst stage, or also be called as cystic stage or minute stage. When the resistance of the human body is going to be weak at the place of the large intestine, immediately it starts with the pathogenic life and converts into the trophozoite form, which one is called as magna form. In that form, it infects to the tissues. You see, suppose it is the alimentary canal. You consider this outline is called as the outer lining layer of the alimentary canal, and the blue mass would be called as the inner lining layer of the alimentary canal. You consider this portion would be called as the cross section of the large intestine. Specifically at the colon and also the rectum, you mark there the inner lining layer, generally that lying by the mucosa epithelial cells, which are situated in mucus. That is called the mucosal lining layer also be. just under of it you find another portion will be remaining in there, that is called as submucosa. Submucosa is separated from the mucosal layer by the muscularis mucosa anatomically. Then underneath of the submucosa you also find the muscular coat. In muscular coat towards outer you find the longitudinal muscle layer. At the middle you find a circular muscle layer. Towards inner, at the place of the stomach you find oblique muscle layer. But it is not well visible at the rectal regions. Okay? Circular muscle layer as well as the longitudinal muscle layer would be remaining in the muscular coat. Towards outer you find the serosa. Okay? But the parasite will be remaining at where? At the lumen of the large intestine. That one, when it will be activated and converted to the magna form to invade the mucosa epithelial layer and destroy that layer. Finally enters to the submucosa. You know, submucosa is a place. At there you find the loose connective tissue. In there you find the lymphatic vessels, blood vessels, nerve fibers. They will be ramifying all over these parts. And due to this parasite, they will be defunct. They will be destroyed. And when the blood capillaries will be destroyed in there, automatically blood can ooze to that site. Okay? And blood if oozed, that means corpuscles will be liberated. Your RBC, red blood corpuscles and white blood corpuscles, they will be coming out on that site. Okay? And they will be consumed to things. If the helpful bacteria will be remaining in there, Entamoeba generally to eat them. Escherichia coli, E. coli, what type of helpful bacteria will be remaining in there and they can devour to them. And forming a cavity. Okay? And initially the blood and pus will be remaining in there and forming a ulcer. After the ulcer, you find in that site one cavity will be formed, which are generally covered with the cellular debris. Then your blood corpuscles, pus, and also you find in there the lymphatic fluids, lymphocytes. All these will be also oozing from that site and forming the abasis. That is the cavity, wounding cavity, which is called as abasis. And in this manner, the site will be affected. Tissue will be degenerated in there. And it is caused by the specifically secretion of proteolytic enzyme by the tropocyte, which is called as magna form. What is that enzyme which are destroyed to them? That enzyme is named as histolysis. What is it? Histolysis. Again, the histolysis generally destroys the tissue mass and cell mass. And if the tissue will be degenerated in there, you can say there, that is called as histolysis. If the cell will be degenerated there, you can say that is called as the cytolysis. In this manner, the cells and tissues will be degenerated in that site. And that problem will be called as the abasis, or you can say ulcer. Initially it is called as ulcer, ultimately it is called as abasis. And after that comes to the stool. And stool with blood and also the pus and other cell debris, then all things will be eroded to outside. And which one can be explained as the amoebic dysentery, and that is called as amoebiasis. Okay? And this is your infection site, and in that site you must find the wound, and that type of wound is initially called as ulcers, ultimately it is called as abasis, and that type of disease which was caused by this parasite, that is called as amoebic dysentery and amoebiasis. Students, you listen. After the destroy the tissue mass, sometimes the parasite enters inside the blood vessels and also comes to the brain, your spleen, liver, lungs, gonads, and these organs will be affected of. When it infects to the liver, in that time, you can say that parasite is called as your amoebic hepatitis, because it can destroy the liver cells. And you know, liver comprising the hepatic cells, because it is the organ of the hepaton. If the liver cell should be degenerated, at the time, a necrosis would be arising there, and liver would be swell up and forming the pain in that side. And in that time, that type of disease is called as the amoebic hepatitis. Amoebic hepatitis. Sometimes the parasite also infects to the brain, as well as also spleen, and also lungs. And in that time, it will be fatal. People also will ultimately infect the death. Okay? And this is the short description regarding the amoebic dysentery and amoebiasis. Thank you. Listen, further welcome you all. You see, now I shall explain you about the action of the parasite inside the lumen of the parasite, which are remaining in the cyst form, invests to your mucosa epithelial layer, which layer generally comprises number of mucous cells which are secreting the mucosin there, and that cells will be damaged, and cell debris will be formed whenever it enters to inside of it, and this tissue will be degenerated, and in that time it converts to what? Trophozoite form, and that trophozoite form enters your mucosa epithelial layer. Finally, it will reach at the muscular mucosa, invading to it, and comes to the submucosa. You know the submucosa is a very soft tissue, which are laden with the different type of blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, nerve fibers in that side, and they will be degenerated with them, destroyed with this, and lymphatic vessels will be damaged, and lymph will be oozed out, and also blood vessels also be damaged, and the blood and also blood corpuscles will be oozing out, and they will be forming one type of cavity in there. You see, you find one large cavity, and by that agent or pathogenic agent, which one is called as the trophozoite form of the Entamoeba histolytica, and this cavity, which one formed in there, which filled with the blood, cell debris, the Entamoeba, as well as also with the your pus, and everything will be remaining inside of it. And initially, it looks like one flaccid structures, and this one is called as ulcer. Ulcer will be caused in this place. Okay, and due to forming the ulcer, automatically the cells which are remaining in there, they all will be eroded out, and finally the pus along with the other materials will be finally out from it, and in that time a cavity, large cavity will be formed, which one is called as abasis. Okay, and abasis will be formed in their sides, and before it remains in the form of ulcer. Ulcer should be formed in there. After the ulcer, you find the abasis, and first the tissue will be degenerated in there. That is called as invading stage. Invading. In invading stage, the parasite enters inside the tissue mass and damages to them. How? The damage these things which are called as the tissues and also cells. The damage of the tissues is called as the histolysis. Damage of the cells also be called as cytolysis. That is possible by the secretion of one type of proteolytic enzymes, which one is called as the what? You are called as named as the histolysin. That type of enzyme is named as histolysin. Histolysin. Which one? proteolytic enzyme that can damage the tissues and also cells, finally enters to inside of it and convert the blood into the form of the pus with the mucus. And you see in that side you must find the mucus is there and mucus must be present. After the mucus you also find the cell dialysis, and after the cell dialysis you find the blood. Inside the blood you find a different type of blood corpuscles, and also you find the pus and bacteria. Which bacteria are generally beneficial to the human being. They will be remaining inside there and they will be engulfed by the parasite and they will be damaged in there. And after that, amoeba also present there. Which amoeba? Entamoeba. And you see, people call to them as entamoeba, but remember, it is one type of amoeba. Due to remain inside the human being's body, the internal part of the body, especially at the enteron, that one is called as entamoeba. However, and these things will be remaining there, they will be eroded out, and pus will be comes out, and that pus and blood, so everything comes out through the stool, and finally under the faces you find them, and you smear the faces, and you find that the nothing that is called as the blood dysentery, which one is called as amoebic dysentery or amoebiasis. I already explained beforely about its theory, and I pictorially I also will explain you how it is infected inside the lumen of the large intestine of the human being. Okay? Then you come to the know about the other things. That means you find there also the mode of your transmission. Mode of transmission is mainly through your food and also drink, and mainly occurs by the injection of the cyst. And people will inject the food. In that time, with the food you find the amoeba will also be entered to inside of it, and with the presence of cyst, and the cyst present in the containing food, and that also enters to inside of it, and the infection will be starting in there. However, you can remember only in there, it mainly occurs the injection of the cyst in the food or also be in the drink. If the water is infected, that infected water you will sip or drink, and automatically it comes to the body. The contamination of the food and drinks occurs in the three manners. First thing is the unhygienic habits of the food. Handlers who by habit scratch the anus and then put the fingers in the food which they serve. Second thing, habit of the defecation of the open peel causing the contamination of the vegetables, and then washing the bottom in the pots and causing the contamination of the water. And third point, transmission of the cyst from the stools to food and drinks by flies and cockroaches. In this manner, and the transmission will be accomplished in its life. Thank you. Please draw your attention towards the blackboard. Now I shall explain you about the transmission of the disease. Here you find the mode of transmission, how the parasite transmit to the healthy person. Here you find one picture. On this picture you find one boy defaced at the place of the agriculture field or nearby the agriculture field. You see, at the time discharging the stool or feces, in that time the water body also be contact with it, and the pond as well as the agriculture field both are contaminated. You see, this is the pond, this one is the agriculture field in my diagram. In pond you find the water is there, and water is contaminated by the defecation. Generally the feces or stool would be mixed with it, and this is the agriculture field. And here you find different types of vegetables, cauliflowers and cabbage will be remaining there. They will be infected by that causing agent, which one is called as the Histolytica. Through the stool, it comes in contact with them. We people use these things, you must be affected by that but causing agent, and that type of dysentery which was generally caused by it, that is called as amoebic dysentery, or also be called as the amoebiasis. You mainly can look over the point. It mainly occurs by the ingestion of the cyst in food and also in drink. The contamination of the food or drink occurs by 3 ways. I already explained in the last class. First point is on hygienic habits. You can go through the healthy habits. You can wash your hands properly before using the food or using any type of drink. And if you not do like that unhygienic habits of the food handlers and who by habit scratch the anus and then put the fingers in the food which they serve, automatically that food is going to be what? Soggy and also be called as the infected food. And second point, habit of the defecating of the open fields. You see here you find the defecting of that boy in the open fields and causing the contamination of the vegetables, and then washing the bottom of the ponds, causing the contamination of the water in there. Third point, the transmission of the cyst. If the cyst will be remaining there, and cyst comes to the body by drinking and also eating the food, and cyst if comes to the body from where? From the stool to the food or drink, then to the healthy person. The healthy person no doubt is affected by them. And sometimes some carrier host also carrying the parasite from there to the healthy man, which are them. You see your flies, house flies, and also cockroaches, they will be carried out, the parasite from one place to the another place, an affected person to the one healthy person. In this manner, that parasite can be transmitted. Okay? Then come to know about the diagnosis. And in diagnosis, remember, in case of here, the diagnosis is very simple way. Consists of the microscopical detection by the trophozoite or the cyst in the fecal smear. By the help of the microscope, we detect them. And the presence of your white and stone-shaped, that is called as the Charcot-Leyden crystals in the faces, suggests the Entamoeba histolytica infection. Okay? And Madhya, the presence of that white stone-shaped structures or crystals, which are named as the Charcot-Leyden. Charcot, C-H-A-R-C-O-T. Okay? That Charcot and Charcot-Leyden, both are the scientists. That crystal is called as Charcot-Leyden, that is white crystal-like structures, stone-like structures. You will detect in the faces under the microscope whenever you study the smear, the fecal smear of the infected persons. You can detect the position of the parasite. In that time, you can suggest that the person is affected by the Entamoeba histolytica. Okay, and in this manner, you can diagnose the persons. Microscopy is the head structure of it. Without help of the microscope, you cannot study the parasite in there, because the parasites are very deadly in form, and you can reveal detail about them by the help of your compound microscope or medical microscope. Then therapy. Therapy means treatment. How you can treat the patient in there. The internal histolytic infections occurs in both the intestine and in people with symptoms in tissues of the intestine and also in the liver. You can take the smear from the stools and also take the smears from the liver. However, from the intestine as well as from liver, you take the smear and you study under the microscope, then you know the infection stage. As a result, two different classes of drugs are needed to treat the infection, and one of each location, and such anti-amoebic drugs are being known as the amoebicides, like the pesticides, which can generally destroy the pests. And so we can say to that pesticides. Here, the medicines which are generally destroy the parasites, you can say amoebicides. Amoebicides, amoebicides. And amoebicides will be considered as the two forms. And you can detect the amoebicides from the tissues. Okay? And anti-amoebic drugs you can use to control it, so that is called as amoebicides at the time of infection at the place of the tissues, and that is called as a tissue amoebicides. Sometimes the parasite will be reached at the lumen, and they will not be infect the tissues in that time, and that is called as the luminal amoebicides. In that time, the medicine which one is used to destroy to them, that is called as the luminal amoebicides. And since most of the amoeba remains in the intestine of the lumen, when the tissue invasions occurs, it is important to get rid of the luminal amoeba, and this is to prevent the reinfections. The paramycin and iraquinol and the dilomaxide, furoate, you can also be used in there. That is also be called as amoxicillin, have been shown to be effective in there. Remember, two types of treatment you can start. One is called as tissue amoebicides. Parasite infect the two sides, tissues and lumen. In lumen, it remains in the minuta form or cystic form. But in tissues, it remains as tropozoid form. Tropozoid form or magna form. In this stage, when it remains in the lumen without infection, you can say that is cystic form or minuta form. It is inactive form. It is inactive. But here, in tropozoid form, it is very active. Actually, in this stage it is infected, but in this stage it will not be infected. Okay? And both these forms, generally the stages of this parasite, they must be get rid of the organism, and by the medicine you can avoid them, and the parasite will be damaged by that medicines. And different type of medicines you can use for the different type of position of the parasites. I already depicted to you. Thank you all.